Okay. The Space and Rocket Review. Space and Rocket Review. It's Wednesday. How's everybody doing? We're at hump day. We're halfway through. How are you guys doing? You're about to launch your first solo space age rocket in Factorio. All right, Lancho. Nice. What's going on, YouTube? How you guys doing? All right. So, we have another OIG report to read today. Might get angry, might not get angry. I don't know. Well, we'll see. There's a NASA OIG report, and what the OIG report is, the Office of Investigator General. It's basically there to, well, figure out why things went sideways. Think of the OIG basically like internal affairs for like a police station or something. IA. Yeah. So apparently this one is pretty bad. But before we get there, I wanted to show you guys this. So Sawyer, my buddy over at NSF, is at the California Science Center in Los Angeles, where the Endeavor exhibit was just uncovered. We did talk about this a little bit earlier when we were playing KSP. If you're watching the VOD, that means nothing to you. But for the people that don't know, Endeavor, that's the Space Shuttle Endeavor. That was the last space shuttle to be made. It rolled off the assembly line in Palmdale, California in 1992. Its last mission was STS-134 in 2011. It has since been on static display in the horizontal position at the California Science Center until the Samuel Oschin expansion to the museum was made. And now it's in the vertical configuration with a real external tank and two real 4-segment SRBs. They're not loaded, but yeah, those are real. Those are flight SRBs. And that is a real external tank, and that is a real space shuttle. It's the only place in the world where there is a completed shuttle stack, and B, a completed shuttle stack in the vertical position. Outdoorsman, I'm doing great. So that external tank is ET-94. It was the 94th external tank to roll off the assembly line. ET-94 ended up being a spare tank. And the reason why it ended up being a spare tank is because it is a Block 1 external tank design. There were 3 blocks of external tank through the shuttle program. So there's like Block 0, which was like the white tank, which was pretty heavy. But it worked. And then there was the lightweight design through basically the late 80s, post-Challenger, into the early 90s. The lightweight tank design utilized stir welding, which is basically what every aluminum rocket does nowadays to stir weld stuff together. It involves butting 2 plates of aluminum up to next to each other and then having a rotating head that creates friction and introduces heat into the aluminum and actually welds the panels together with friction, hence friction stir welding. Stir welding is an extremely lightweight process because you're not adding any weld. Like with a MIG welder that we use out in the garage, we're adding metal. Stir welding doesn't do that. So you were able to make a much more lightweight tank. Now, the reason why ET-94 wasn't used is because when they started building the ISS, they realized they needed an even lighter external tank, and they made the Block 2 external tank called the SWLT, the super lightweight tank, or SLWT, the super lightweight tank. And they needed the super lightweight tanks to start bringing up the hardware for the International Space Station. So the lightweight tank ET-94, which had been ordered and completed, was never used because it couldn't have been used for any of the ISS assembly missions. So ET-94 basically just stayed at Michoud until it was donated to the California Science Center at the end of the shuttle program. It's been sitting there ever since. Well, till now. And the SRB segments are extra SRB segments that are left over from the shuttle program, but they're SRB segments that are near their end of life. So these segments here are they are shuttle segments. I don't know if they've flown, to be honest with you. These casings, I have no idea. We'd have to look into it. But they are SRB casings. That's real. Those are real. Those are real things. Everything that you see here, none of that is fake. That's all real shuttle hardware. Which, yeah, I guess I gotta go to Los Angeles. The problem is if you're from overseas or don't know geography very well. I'm over here. See where that hook is? That's where I am. Los Angeles is over there. It's on the exact opposite side of the freaking country. It's gonna take... I don't know how we're gonna get out there. I'll figure it out. I'll get back to you. Is this the closest the general public has ever been to get to a fully stacked shuttle? Yes, for the most part. Hi there. When do you think the next rocket space launch will be? Do you think, if you don't mind me asking? Well, there's an app, there's a website that I use, Aviation Geek, called nextspaceflight.com. That tells you there's a Starlink mission going out of Vandenberg, so that's Slick 4 East, Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base at 11:19 tonight. That's the next one. And then on Saturday at 5 a.m., there is going to be the Swift Boost mission, which is launched on a Pegasus, which is dropped from an L-1011 Lockheed TriStar and then launched up into space. That's the only airworthy TriStar in existence. And unfortunately, this is its last flight, which sucks, but whatever. Wasn't Endeavour built with spare parts? Endeavour was built out of spare parts left over. Yeah. Endeavour's built out of spare parts. Yep. Thanks for the link. Yeah, baby. Moonbase update presser on Tuesday. What is this? So yeah, the California Science Center, that's a real external tank. That's all real hardware. It's the only place in the world. Guys, actually, you know what I'm going to say is that I'm not entirely sure we have, well, do we have this is a kind of an interesting question. Maybe we could do a little bit of a tangent in space news here before we get into the OIG report. Now, I guess my question is there enough to build another shuttle stack vertically? Do we have enough to make another stack? I'm not sure. I think we could probably do one more. Now, we have plenty of casings, plenty of SRB casings, and there's still obviously Atlantis and Discovery, right? And you could even get away with vertically stacking Intrepid. It can attach to an external tank. In Flight Simulator 2024, you've put in nearly 2,000 hours. I gotta get back to playing at Aviation, dude. I am an av geek, dude. But I do the space flight stuff most of the time, but I am a huge plane nerd on top of that. What if we make it out of cake? What if we did? So... Northrop Grumman probably has a lot of leftover casings, but just in case Northrop Grumman couldn't do that, I know that there is albeit an old SRB in Tucson at Pima. You could use that for a static display. So this is the Pima Air and Space Museum. There is a 4-segment SRB sitting there. Now, whether that thing is strong enough to hold up a stack or not, I don't know. But, yeah, we could. So that's one. There is an SRB there, and I'm sure that it's compatriot with 4 casings, that another is around somewhere. Now, let's check over at Michoud. So this is where NASA built all the external tanks. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, well, there you go. That's ET-94. That's the one that's stacked. And then, wow, how old is this picture? This is the external tank structural qualification article from the shuttle program. It's like a half century old, and it was destroyed in a hurricane. Unfortunately. And I'm pretty sure that's ET-94. So you could have made another external tank with the STA pieces, the structural testing article. I'm fairly confident that there is no... forgot that was there. I mean, it's not. They moved it, but... Ooh. There are 8 SRB cases at the VAB. There is 8 SRB cases at the VAB. That's right. How many Saturn V's are there? There's enough to make 4. 3 are assembled. Well, I don't know if you could make another one. What I will tell you is that there is a legitimate full flight hardware S1C lying around. This was moved though. But yes, that is real. That is a flight Saturn V S1C. That one was supposed to be used on Apollo 20 if I'm remembering correctly. Cuz they used the Apollo 18 Saturn V they had enough Saturn V's to get out to Apollo 20. They used the Apollo 18 Saturn V for Skylab. So that was the Skylab 1 mission. The 19 one, I believe, the parts for 19 is parts of the Saturn V that would have been Apollo 19 are at Huntsville, and the other parts are in Houston. And then the Apollo 21, the Apollo 20, I believe, was used for Skylab replica. And I don't know where the Apollo 20 second stage is. I have no idea where the S2 is. I know the S1 is right there. Where are there 3 stacked Saturn V's? There's no stacked Saturn V's, Vargon. There are 3 Saturn V's on display. That is more or less a full Saturn V. One of them is in Huntsville. It's up here. It's at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. Where's Huntsville? Up here. That one, that's fake. That's a replica. The real one is inside the Davidson Center for Space Exploration. Oh. OIG meme review. That's right, Snarfer. Oh, Trey, thank you for this. Oh. There you go. Dude, we had built Saturn V's and landers and spacecraft ready to go, and they were like, no. Let's do nothing instead. Wait. That's a great idea. I'm going to let you finish, but let's just do nothing instead. Lost a city, EJ has. How embarrassing. Yeah, see? They use the upper stage for Skylab to make the Skylab mock-up. And then, see, Apollo 20, that's where the S2 is. The S2 is the one that's in Houston. See, I knew that the one in Huntsville is like the full Apollo 19 stack. And then the ones in Kennedy, the one at Kennedy and the one in Texas are, they're amalgams. They're a bunch of leftover parts. Like the one at Kennedy Space Center is not a real, that's not a real Saturn V first stage. Now, there's an asterisk to that. It's a trick question. It is a real Saturn V upper stage. It's just not a flight Saturn V upper stage. The one at Kennedy Space Center is SA-500. It was the qualification test article for the Saturn V program. So it's not a real flight-ready upper stage, but it's about as real as it gets if you don't have one of these things lying around. What was the rocket called that took up Bob and Doug into space? That was a Falcon 9. Falcon 9 with a Dragon 2. Nah, no, let's do nothing instead. Yeah, I know, right? Is there a shuttle tank at the KSC Visitor Complex near Atlantis? So going back to shuttle flight hardware, there is one other external tank that I know of. There is nothing at the Cape. Cape has no ETs left. That right there at Kennedy Space Center Visitors, that's a fake. Those are fake SRBs too. They're made out of steel. It's a static display. Though that's not flight hardware. The orbiter that's inside is flight hardware. For what it's worth, that's a real Saturn 1B and a real S4B upper stage. That's real. That was the Skylab rescue mission. That's why it's there. So that is real. Most of this stuff is actually real. They're just leftover missiles from the space program. Dude, this is such an old picture. The new pavilion at KSCVC isn't even built yet. You can go to Kennedy Space Center Visitors Aviation, and you can. They'll put you on a bus and give you a tour, which is cool. The bus goes up here to the VAB, and then it goes to the Saturn V Center. Up here, if you notice that there's a really, really long building, that's where the Kennedy Space Center Saturn V is. And Trey, thank you very much for this picture. The one at Huntsville is the dynamic test article. All the purple is test articles. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it is. I can't believe that they're just like we have a full Saturn V like ready to go, and they were just like, nah. Now, the only external tank that I know of that's left that wasn't a test article or destroyed or given to the California Science Center, believe it or not, is not at KSC. It's all the way up here. This is very, very weird, but it's up here. Sitting at an old, heavy industrial dock. That was a test fitment article. That was a test article from the shuttle program. That tank, I believe, did fitment checks on 39A and 39B before being retired. It is an older external tank. It's a Block 0, but it is a real one. You can drive up to this one. It was donated to a museum at the end of the shuttle program, and the museum towed it there and then did nothing with it. Yeah, I know, Wisp. The Gateway Pavilion is what it's called. There you go. Matt, what's up? Check Discord. Yeah, all right, did that. Mm-hmm. That is a pretty cool... This is a useful graphic, though. Yeah, there's still a lot of Saturn V hardware hanging around, dude. See, that's the other reason. People are like, "Oh, we can't just make another Saturn V." Dude, between all this, you could figure it out. That's bull crap. I still, just we'll soapbox a little bit here. That's bull crap. You could figure it out with all this. That's plenty of hardware. It's not like you can't compare and contrast to figure out tolerances and stuff. My dad said, we can't build another one. We don't know how. That's bull crap, dude. We could figure it out. We could absolutely do that. How about Nova? There's no known Nova. parts. Actually, scratch that. That's not entirely true. There is one Nova part, and it is the injector and assembly and combustion chamber from the Aerojet M1 rocket engine. The M1 rocket engine is a Saturn V first stage engine that Aerojet was hot rodding to work on hydrolocks and have a vacuum optimized nozzle. 1.5 million pounds of thrust from an upper stage hydrolocks engine. That is the only piece of a Nova rocket that ever got made, unfortunately. It's derived from the F1. Yep, so they're using brazed tubular cooling channels. Yep. So, if you ever see a rocket engine like this, guys, for the people that don't know, that's brazed tubes. So, if you guys are familiar with, like, if you ever watch, like, Roadrunner and Coyote, right? There's the Wild West. Like, you have the barrels, and the barrels are made out of planks of wood with a band around them. You know, like the typical Wild West showdown at the OK Corral. That's how they made rocket engines for a long time. These are a bunch of tubes. Just a bunch of tubes that they all laid together and made, you know, almost like a Native American teepee almost, and then they brazed them with lead. They brazed them together with lead, and these bands hold the whole thing in place. That's how we did regenerative cooling in the 60s. Just brazed tubes. Wabbit season. I say it's duck season, and I say fire. Yes, just like that. That's the only part of the M1 that ever got made, which is dumb. We should have made the... Oh, hey, baby. Two parts. I forgot about this one. Would Sea Dragon have been operationally practical with logistics and fueling? Sure. I wouldn't have put people on that thing, Mason, but yeah, sure, why not? The thing is just, why do you need 450 tons to Leo? $1.5 million, 1,000 psi chamber pressure, combustion chamber diameter 42 inches. Oh my goodness, that's pretty big. Yeah, 200 tubes at 347 stainless in an Inconel 718 bolt-on jacket. Yep, brazed tubes, baby. Stainless steel though. Very nice. Coaxial injector. Injector body material, they made it out of 347 stainless as well. 1,200 to 3,000 anticipated injector elements. Nozzle throat diameter? Yes. The gas generator burns 110 pounds a second. 0.8 oxidizer to fuel. Oh. How fuel rich do you want to run? Yes. Was the M1 ever tested? No. No, they never did it. How much does Hubble weigh? I have no idea. It's heavy. It's actually not too bad. The LOX turbo pumps axial flow 36,700 RPMs. Input pressure is 30 feet. Nice. Flow rate 3,000 pounds a second, 21 pounds a second nominal. Axial thrust load on bearings in excess of 30,000 pounds. Bearings are, oxygen lubricated, baby. 440C stainless steel ball bearings with glass-filled Teflon cages. Okay, all right. Expensive. It wouldn't have been rolling coal, Deadbringer, because it's hydrogen. It would have been rolling steam. It's a 2-stage turbine with a 10-stage axial flow pump. That's what this thing is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm sorry? Aren't axial pubs quite uncommon nowadays for rocket engines? Yeah, that's very strange, Lava Eagle. That's a very weird way of doing it. Nowadays, rocket engines just use a gas generator instead of an axial flow pump. Yeah. Damn, dude. That doesn't say that's not 10 stages. That's a 9-stage axial flow pump. There's your fluid impeller. So this is where the liquid comes in. Explosions happen right here. Spin this, and then this turbine drives the whole damn thing. Flow rate. I mean, that's a lot. That is a lot of flow. That's a lot of mass dot, m dot. That's, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Ship 40 is starting to get frosty. Oh, yeah. SpaceX is... All right, well, that's a hell of a deep dive, but yeah. I'm actually saving this picture, Trey. Thank you very much. We need to put that in my Saturn research picture. Yeah, let's put that in there. Here we go. All right, so, guys, Starship, ship number 40, V3, fax machine, MP412C, is, sorry, chat. Hey, there we go. Is out on the Massey's test stand for a potential static fire. I don't know if it's a static fire. Maybe a static fire. We don't know. M1 engine is 1.5 million pounds of thrust. Yeah, think about that. From a first stage engine, Chief, that's beast. That's like one of the most powerful rocket engines. But think about a second stage engine. So, all right, let me put it to you like this. Imagine a future version of Saturn V where the S2, the second stage, doesn't have 5 J2 engines, but it has one M1 engine. That would actually be more thrust than 5 J2s. That's what I'm talking about when I say, like, dude, we could have kept going with the Saturn V and we could have upgraded the snot out of it, and it honestly could have been ridiculous. Like, I've even seen like concepts, like, I don't know if this is all history or concepts or whatever, but I've seen concepts of them wanting to put Titan SRBs, 4 Titan SRBs on the side of the Saturn V. I really think that wouldn't have worked because of heating problems, but that would be nice. Specific impulse, it's Hydrolox, Chief. It's well above 400. Ship 40 is frosty. Would an M1 be a good first stage engine? 428-second specific impulse. You could use it. You could use it at that as that with the right nozzle. I probably wouldn't use a 40-to-1 expansion ratio if we were gonna optimize this thing for your first stage. But yeah. Yeah, you could. Sure. 60 TWR. That's pretty damn good, man. 9 tons. Holy crap. Well, 60 is okay. It's 20. The engine would have been 20,000 pounds. Yeah, so about that whole first stage engine thing, no, I wouldn't do that. thinking the 14-1 to 40-1 is Inco isn't. Oh, jeez. Space Launching System was a 1960s era design project from the United States Air Force for a family of launch vehicles based around a set of common components. After a series of studies in the late 1950s, the Air Force had concluded that the maximum efficiency would be gained by using only liquid hydrogen fuel for upper stages, which demanded the use of boosters based on segmented solid fuel rockets. By combining one of three upper stages with three different diameters of solids to build any length needed, the Space Launching System provided wide flexibility in launch capability. Didn't they do that with Omega? Or at least try to? Its competition was an upgraded version of the Titan 1 with a new upper stage that produced the Titan C concept. In the end, neither SLS nor Titan C would be developed. In its place, the new Titan 3 was selected. Ugh. Combining the new missile Titan C with the solid rocket boosters from the Space Launching System. SLS was also needed for the Lunex project, a proposed human lunar landing in 1967. They wanted to standardize stuff for easy configurability, so they came up with Titan 3. I'm not going to lie, that's not the best rocket if you're trying to do standardization. You have solid rocket boosters on the outside, a hypergolic first stage and a hypergolic second stage, and then a Hydrolox third stage in the Titan 3 Centaur variant, which is, you know, how many different propellants do you want to use? Yes. And then there's Titan 3B, but we don't talk about Titan 3B. Anyway, Ship 40 is being tested right now, and I will give you guys updates as to what's going on with that as I see them. Okay, shall we get to the OIG report? NASA's management of programs and projects after mission termination canceled or repurposed Artemis campaign systems. You've taken everyone's advice and decided to get a Honda. You bought an S2000. We can talk about Titan K9. Yeah, that's a good variant, Fluffy. Requires a lot of maintenance, though. It's all that steel. I bet it could be lightened. Yep. I got a message. Might be important. All right. Okay, let's see what we got here in the OIG report. Quick question on Pegasus. Did it get to Quaj? I don't know. So the Office of Investigator General is basically an auditor for, I said it was like internal affairs. It's an auditor for NASA. All right. The OIG initiated an audit in March 2026 examining NASA's management of developed assets for programs and projects terminated prior to launch or operations. With the scope of this audit are 4 Artemis systems with a combined contract value of $5.9 billion that the agency recently announced plans to cancel or repurpose. SLS Exploration Upper Stage, SLS Universal Stage Adapter, Mobile Launcher 2, and the Gateway's Habitation and Logistics Outpost. Collectively, these 4 systems have experienced billions of dollars in cost increases and years of scheduled delays. Yeah, Foz, I see it. In February 2026, NASA announced that it was reformulating the Artemis campaign in accordance with the president's national space policy to return American astronauts to the moon and establish an enduring lunar presence. To this end, the agency intends to increase its cadence of missions by standardizing the SLS two-stage heavy lift rocket and adding a new mission to low Earth orbit before sending astronauts to the moon's surface in 2028. To achieve this goal of one crewed lunar landing mission per year, NASA is no longer planning to upgrade the SLS to a more powerful configuration, utilizing the EUS, the Universal Exploration Upper Stage Universal Stage Adapter and Mobile Launcher 2. Further, rather than utilizing the Gateway as a staging location for lunar surface missions, NASA plans to shift its efforts to building a permanent moon base. Given the substantial investment, evolving changes to the Artemis campaign, and the urgency of the current fiscal year budget cycle, we are issuing this interim memorandum to document the cost schedule and development posture of these systems, as well as the projected cost and schedule to complete them if NASA had not reformulated the Artemis campaign. What? Why does NASA like paragraph sentences, man? Given the substantial investment, evolving changes to the Artemis campaign, and urgency of the current fiscal year budget cycle, we are issuing this interim memorandum to document the cost schedule and development posture of these systems, as well as the projected cost and schedule. That's a run-on sentence. The projected cost and schedule to complete them if NASA has not reformulated the Artemis campaign. These projections are not intended to serve as comprehensive cost and schedule estimates. Rather, they illustrate potential outcomes based on available historical cost and schedule data provided by NASA. Details about our methodology and associated limitations are outlined in Enclosure 1. We believe that the timely dissemination of this information will be valuable for the agency, administration, and Congress, and the public as NASA contemplates the future of Artemis. This part of the page intentionally left blank. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm understanding here. Okay, the exploration upper stage. The EUS was designed as an upgraded upper stage for the SLS heavy lift rocket to increase its capacity to send heavier and larger payloads into deep space. SLS consists of two stages. A core stage that provides initial launch thrust, and an upper stage that propels spacecraft and cargo beyond Earth orbit. The EUS would have increased SLS's capability by 40% to send the Orion MPCV, multi-purpose crew vehicle, Orion, and cargo payloads to the moon and other destinations. Implementation of the EUS also would have required upgrades to supporting launch and operational infrastructure. SLS program, prime contractor Boeing. Contract value and schedule growth. The value was... The original EUS contract was 900 and... Well, in February 2017... Oh, geez. Oh, boy. February 2017, they were awarded a contract for $962 million over the next 4 years to build the EUS. In March of 2021, costs ballooned an extra $2 billion to present. So it's almost $3 billion since the contract was first awarded in February of 2017. In 2015, Congress directed NASA to design a more powerful upper stage for use in upgraded variants of its SLS heavy lift rocket. NASA selected Boeing to design and manufacture the EUS, and in February, see, there's your problem. That's your problem right there. Congress directed NASA to design a more powerful upper stage, and NASA said, Boeing will do it. Right there is why the EUS, I can already tell you this right now, that right there is why this is expensive. because NASA just said we need an upper stage for SLS that can do this, instead of designing the entire upper stage and then saying, can you make this? That's how we did it during Apollo. NASA designed everything, and then they went to Boeing and Grumman and Douglas and said, hey, can you make this? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. When was the last thing NASA fully designed something in-house? James Webb, probably. That was under Charlie Bolden. Yeah, I know. Why do work when we could just have Boeing do it? It's cheaper, right? And in February 2017, the agency incorporated EUS work into its existing SLS core stages. In February of 2017, the agency incorporated EUS work into its existing SLS core stages contract with Boeing. The scope of work included design and delivery of one EUS, one interstage to connect the EUS to the SLS core stage, and associated test articles. This added $962 million to the contract and set a delivery date for the first EUS in March of 2021. That's correct, Sirit. That is what Marshall is for. Marshall is the place that designs the freaking rockets. And then they do the dynamic testing. That's what it, historically, that's what it should be used for. You know, we have this whole gosh dang space flight center that we pay billions of dollars to keep running, and we just, no, have Boeing design it. In March of 2026, NASA issued a stop work order to Boeing, suspending further work on the EUS. By this time, the EUS portion of the contract value had more than doubled to almost $2 billion, while the delivery date for the upper stage was unspecified. Performance. As we reported in August of 2024, Boeing and NASA faced cost and schedule challenges related to the EUS. In 2018, NASA deprioritized work on the EUS to focus on the first core stage delivery. By December of 2019, NASA had spent approximately $516 million of the $962 million originally allocated on the contract for EUS development. For what? Additional factors led to further cost and schedule increases, including changing Artemis mission profiles, maintaining the workforce longer than planned, manufacturing issues, and supply chain challenges. So is Boeing going to pay us that $2 billion back, or? To this end, NASA evaluations of Boeing performance in 2024 and 2025 reflected continued challenges, with the agency ultimately awarding Boeing an unsatisfactory rating for its evaluation period ending in May of 2025. NASA noted significant weakness related to EUS production efficiency, including unrealistic production schedules and the lack of a clear plan for improvement. This included a significant weakness related to the agency's limited confidence in Boeing's internal systems for task scheduling and project management. Let me read this next paragraph. No, my bullcrap detector is going off here. I'll tell you why in a second. And it's not at Boeing either. In its March 2026 financial management report, Boeing estimated work on the first EUS would cost $2.9 billion by the time it was complete, including any fees earned. At that time, NASA's deterministic or best case schedule completion date was August of 2028. this sentence or this paragraph right here. NASA's evaluations of Boeing's performance in 2024 and 2025 reflected continued challenges, with the agency ultimately awarding Boeing an unsatisfactory rating for its evaluation period ending in May of 2025. NASA noted significant weakness related to U.S. production efficiency, including unrealistic production schedules and the lack of a clear plan for improvement. This included a significant weakness related to the agency's limited confidence in Boeing's internal systems for task scheduling and project management. Okay. Who denotes the deadlines for Boeing to deliver these stages by? Who does that? Does Boeing think of, when they're going to be delivered? Who denotes that? NASA denotes that. How are they supposed to make a system for task scheduling and project management if they don't know when the thing's going to be done? If Boeing goes to NASA and says, hey, when do you need this upper stage? And NASA says, I don't know, sometime soon. How are they supposed to build one? How are you supposed to make it? When do you need this? Now, don't get me wrong, Boeing is... If I was in this situation, I would just say, let's see how long it's going to take for a core stage, and we'll scale the EUS production to that. And it seems like that is pretty much exactly what they were going to do. Weird. I get you, but they gave us a rendering of a box. There's more. They built more than just that stupid box, Wisp. They've built the qualification articles, and the qual articles are to test to make sure that your manufacturing systems work. They could crank out more. I mean, not anymore, they won't, but don't get me wrong, it's not all on Boeing. But I mean, some of it is, right? Why would you, if you got paid to do this work, see, this is Jim. NASA deprioritized work on the EUS to focus on the core stage delivery. What? They deprioritized work on the EUS, but they still paid them for it. And guess what, guys? That $516 million probably was just to keep people on retention. That was probably just to pay your workforce, dude. These are aerospace engineers. What even was that box for? It's the thrust structure for the EUS. So, look. I'm not defending Boeing. Literally, you got awarded a contract to build one goddamn upper stage 9 years ago, and you got $3 billion to do it. Look, man, I'm a moron, and I could figure that one out. 9 years? If you gave me $3 billion and 9 years, I could make that. I'm positive. If I was running that project, I could get that done. And I'm an idiot. I'm confident enough in what I know about rockets that I would find the right people to do the right work, and we'd get it done for $3 billion freaking dollars. It's not all on Boeing, but it's not all on NASA either. It's both of them. NASA is not going to give Boeing deadlines, and Boeing's just going to do Boeing things. So it's like I said, you can sit here and you can just be angry at Boeing, but it's not entirely their fault either. All right, Antares. All right, here's the interesting part. Projected cost and schedule to complete. If Boeing was to continue work on the EUS through delivery of the first flight unit and associated test articles, in our judgment, costs would continue to grow and the schedule would continue to slip. Based on Boeing's historical cost and schedule data, we've projected contract costs would have grown to $3.7 billion. Nearly $750 million higher than Boeing's latest estimate at completion in March of 2026. We also project delivery for the first flight-ready EUS would have been delayed until November of 2028, approximately 7.5 years later than originally planned. Figure 1 depicts Boeing's historical cost estimate at completion and our projected cost and schedule for completing the EUS. Give me 1 second, dude. Sorry, I just need to check something real quick. All right, let's take a look. So the contract stop work order issued March 2026, 2.9 billion contractor estimated completion. OIG projected completion date 3.7 billion projected estimated completion. Oh my goodness. The other thing, guys, is that, look, once again, if you read this and you looked at this and you said, like, you know, it's all Boeing's fault, it's all Boeing's fault, it's not. NASA changed the plan in 2019. Jim changed the plan. The EUS was supposed to be ready for Artemis 2 originally, and Jim de-scoped it and bought 3 Delta IV stages instead. He de-scoped it because he wanted money for HLS. That's what happened. And that, I thought that was a good idea at the time. That's proving to not be that a great decision. So basically, he put the EUS program on life support, and Boeing wants to retain that personnel, right? So they basically just leave them there and tell NASA, like, look, you got to pay these people because the EUS, you're going to need this eventually, right? That's why progress on the EUS has been so slow. They de-scoped it. It's not like, once again, Boeing needs to pull their head out of their ass, like no doubt, but it's not just their fault, dudes. It's not just their fault. You see these bumps? All these bumps in funding, right? Look, see that? Now, see, that's very interesting that they didn't include 2019 when the project was de-scoped, because the funding was probably up here and then it probably came down. It's very interesting that they cut off that piece of data, because basically from this funding drop right there, that's the delay. That's delayed, right? So instead of Artemis 1 using an ICPS, right, and Artemis 2 using the EUS, that was the original plan, right? Now Artemis 4 would use the EUS. So guess what? They defunded it. They defunded the program. Underfunding programs makes them perform very badly. Very badly. That's what happened with Ares 1X. They underfunded it 3 years in a row and then blamed the contractor for poor performance and then canceled it. They used that as a justification for canceling. It turns out when you want someone to build you $1 million rocket and you pay them 250 G's and they don't have it done on time, it's kind of not their fault. You're setting them up to fail. Would you say that SLS has been the single most chronically underfunded large NASA program? Yes. This is the result of Congress flat funding SLS. Yes, that also has a lot to do with it, Spoiled, yes. And the reason why SLS was flat funded is to make sure that our space program, our national space program, stayed alive in some capacity. Some people like to use that as an argument for like, oh, they're just protecting pork. They're just a jobs program. And yeah, that jobs program was working really, really well, building a space station with space shuttles until somebody decided to pull the plug on the whole thing. And turns out that pissed Congress off a little bit. So they flat funded a heavy lift launch vehicle. Oops. Yeah, Drew, that's a good point. Like I said, I'm not defending Boeing. They need to pull their head out of their ass. But also, this is not entirely their fault. This decision, I will tell you this right now. This decision right there. That is the biggest reason why the EUS is not done. Yeah, Aqualex, look, it's not as simple as saying this is Boeing's fault or this is NASA's fault. Most spaceflight pundits will look at this and say, oh, Boeing sucks. And they do. They're not wrong, but that's not the whole story either. NASA has had their head up their tail and they refuse to enforce accountability. Basically over the last 16 years, they refused to enforce accountability. They didn't do it with Starliner. They didn't do it with SLS. They definitely didn't do it with the EUS. And now those chickens are coming to roost. Like, straight up, it's not just Boeing's fault. I will tell you this right now. It's like probably 75% their fault. Maybe 60-40. I'd say 60% Boeing, 40% NASA. Anyway, let's move on. The Universal Stage Adapter is the payload fairing that would go on top of the EUS. You could see the Universal Stage Adapter right there with Orion on the front. I'm particularly pissed about them giving all these completion bonuses for being late and over budget. Yeah. I've heard about those. I'd like to see some sources cited in an OIG report, but yeah. All right, Universal Stage Adapter. The stage adapter was designed to connect Orion spacecraft to the EUS used on the larger SLS rocket variants. With its cone-shaped structure, the adapter would house co-manifested payloads and provide environmental control prior to payload deployment. Okay, Space Launch System, prime contractor was Dynetics. Yeah, they may have Aqualex. I forget if I read that in a news article, if we saw it in an OIG. Either way, if that is what's going on, that's stupid. I agree with you. You don't reward somebody for failure. That's dumb. I suspect Mobile Launcher 2 is going to look very similar. Yes, the supplier was milking it, but how many times did NASA change the specification? It's not that NASA changed the specification with the Mobile Launcher. The Mobile Launcher is further down. I will tell you this right now. The reason why the Mobile Launcher contract ballooned out of control in cost is because, quite frankly, SLS Block 1B is too heavy. It's too heavy for the crawler way. It's too heavy for the crawler transporter to move. So obviously you're not going to change the rocket design. It's much easier to change the launch pad than it is the rocket because it's a launch pad, right? The reason why that ML contract has gotten it ballooned out of control is because they needed to make a mobile launcher that was light enough to support the heavy lift launch vehicle, the heaviest rocket that's ever rolled out of the VAB, which would have been Block 1B, and also make it the lightest mobile launcher we've ever built. It has to be the strongest and the lightest ML ever made. because SLS Block 1B is too heavy. If they made just another mobile launcher like ML1 and tried to launch Block 1B on it, the crawler transporter wouldn't be able to move it. It would sink into the ground. It's too heavy. It's beyond 16 million pounds. So Bechtel, who's known for being a schmuck with contracts, right, got a contract where they basically had to over-engineer the entire mobile launcher. There's a reason why Mobile Launcher 2 looks completely different comparatively to every other mobile launcher. And this really, the big thing comes down to Congress mandating a shuttle-derived launch vehicle for lunar exploration because Constellation got canceled. Don't get me wrong, Ares 5 would have had the same problem for what it's worth. So, contract for the Universal Stage Adapter was awarded in June of 2017. By August of 2021, it had exhausted the projected cost, and it is now total cost in September of 2028 ballooned to $353 million. Background. In June of 2017, NASA contracted with Dynetics Incorporated to design, build, and test the Universal Stage Adapter. The cost plus award fee contract required delivery and integration of the first Universal Stage Adapter with SLS by August of 2021. Well, the first Universal Stage Adapter was valued at $131 million. The contract also included options to allow NASA to order up to 6 additional adapters for future missions. What a dumb way of doing that. See that right there? That's not how you procure spaceflight hardware. That's okay. In May of 2022, NASA added $9 million to the contract for the design, build, and test of the first payload separation system. A mechanism within each Universal Stage Adapter used to physically release co-manifested payloads once SLS reaches orbit. In February 2026, NASA announced that it would no longer use the Universal Stage Adapter and issued a stop work order. By this time, the contract value for the first Universal Stage Adapter and payload separation system had grown by nearly 170% to almost $353 million. And the delivery and integration schedule for the adapter had been delayed by 7 years to September of 2028. Performance. The Universal Stage Adapter's contract cost and schedule estimates grew beyond original estimates due to both NASA-directed modifications and Dynetics' performance issues. By 2025, the total contract value had increased by $203 million due to NASA-directed contract modifications. These changes included effects on the Universal Stage Adapter due to SLS program revisions, the incorporation of the payload separation system, and other design requirement changes. For example, in 2019, NASA increased the contract value by $76 million to extend the contract by 2 years and fund mass reduction initiatives. Dynetics building something that has a negative mass fraction? Wouldn't be the first time. SLS was overweight. Told you. For example, in 2019, NASA increased the contract value by $76 million. Okay, a development qualification test plan and 5 additional payload separation system segments for service life extension testing. Why are they letting contractors design this stuff? See, this is what I mean. They told them to design, build, and test something. NASA said it was good, and then NASA said, wait, that's not what we want. We'll give you more money. How does it take $9 million to add a spring-loaded deploy mechanism for CubeSats? Here's my thing about this, Creeper. You're gonna design a fairing. You're gonna design a fairing that belongs on top of a super heavy launch vehicle that interfaces with Orion at the top and the EUS at the bottom. A fairing that is specifically designed for co-manifesting payloads. And you're not going to build a payload attachment system for it? You're not going to build that? The original USA contract had no payload adapter. It's a fairing! It's a fairing, dude! What do you do with fairings? You put payload in the fairing! Bro, who the... Dude, if I had known that the structure of that contract was like that, I would have blown a gasket when it was awarded. Oh, my... All right. All right. All right. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Bro, how do you... The payload separation... You didn't build a PAF for your... Wait a minute. That's not even a PF. That's the separator. Oh, it's even worse. What's wrong with... Footnotes, huh, Deadbringer? All right, we'll see. The $131 million contract value for the first Universal Stage Adapter includes associated indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity task orders, and available award fee pool. The total potential contract value includes all options at the time of award was $222 million, with a final delivery and integration date for all 7 adapters in August of 2028. An additional $10 million was added to the potential contract value to allow for 6 payload separation systems and training. As of May of 2026, the total potential contract value, including all options for 6 additional universal stage adapters and payload separation systems, was $486 million. Further, according to NASA, in 2024, Dynetics began experiencing significant performance issues. These included ineffective communication with the agency, an unreliable estimate at completion, and inaccurate project schedule, ineffective management of a primary subcontractor responsible for critical hardware, and the absence of an integrated risk management approach. G. Inaccurate project schedules and ineffective management. Noticing a pattern here. As a result, NASA modified the contract multiple times to address the $62 million in cost overruns by Dynetics. Yeah, they're behind, so pay them more. Although NASA rated Dynetics' performance as very good in 2024, 2 evaluations in 2025 affirmed the agency's increasing dissatisfaction with the contractor's performance when they lowered Dynetics' rating to good and then unsatisfactory. Projected cost and schedule to complete. In our judgment, if the Universal Stage Adapter contract was to continue to completion for the first Universal Stage Adapter and payload separation system, the overall contract costs would have continued to grow and the delivery schedule would have been even further delayed. Based on trends in Dynetics' monthly financial management report over the past 9 years, we projected costs for the first universal stage adapter and payload separation system would have climbed to $497 million, nearly 4 times more than planned, and approximately $133 million higher than Dynetics' latest estimate at completion. Similarly, we project the adapter would not have been delivered to NASA until May of 2030. Approximately 9 years behind the original schedule. Further, according to SLS program officials and the contract, after delivery of the first adapter, NASA included an additional 3 years for post-delivery vehicle integration testing and launch operations support and post-launch analysis. Figure 2 depicts Dynetics' historical estimate at completion and our projected cost schedule for completing the universal stage adapter. I would say if the EUS is 60% Boeing's fault and 40% NASA's fault, the universal stage adapter is probably 80% Dynetics' fault and probably about 20% NASA's fault, if I had to put numbers on it. Why? So the big problem that happened with the universal stage adapter is that NASA kept changing the stupid design to the point where Dynetics just couldn't make anything. They kept changing it. So they made one and NASA said, no, change this, change this, change this, change this, change this, change this. Then they're like, all right, it's going to cost you. And then it seems like they just got sick of it and just kind of put the whole project on the back burner, despite getting paid an additional $62 million. NASA is still responsible for managing their subcontractors properly, which they seem to fail to do. That's correct. Deadbringer, look, we can hate Dynetics, and see, that's what gets me. There are spaceflight reporters that are going to look at this and say, look at how bad, look at how much these guys suck. Look at how much these guys suck. But, you know, SpaceX can do this for cheaper. Look at, you know, Blue Origin can do this for cheaper or something. You'll say that, but that is inherently missing the point here. Look, at the end of the day, what agency is all this hardware for? Look, man, you can look at the EUS. Look at the EUS. The EUS ran over cost almost 300%. And this thing ran over cost almost 300%. That's not a coincidence. It's not. I'm sorry. But honestly, another interesting thing that I've noticed with this is that I'll bet you money that the EUS probably would have been completed in time for Artemis 4, but that wouldn't have. I bet you that was the nail in the coffin for the EUS. That's why it got canceled right there. May of 2030 to build a payload fairing? You've been building a payload fairing for 10 years. For a decade. Why do they have to cancel the program versus handing it over to someone else to work on? I don't know. RJ, my guess in that regard would be that Rook is looking potentially for an in-house solution down the road for an upper stage. Guys, once again, the first mistake here with that I can tell with the USA and the EUS is that NASA didn't design them. NASA didn't design these. And look, they paid contractors to design them. Boeing designed the EUS. Dynetics designed the Universal Stage Adapter. NASA did not procure the exact thing that they needed to do the co-manifested stuff, to send stuff to Gateway. They didn't do that. They didn't design exactly what they wanted. And because of this, all these programs had these problems that either A, NASA has to work around, right? Or B, NASA keeps implementing changes and then keeps funneling more money into the contractors, to get them to make all these damn changes. It starts with NASA not designing what they need, and that's because Congress implemented the architecture. It basically screwed NASA's position. Now, it forced their hand, but also at the same time, NASA needs to enforce accountability here. Brother, it doesn't take 9 years to make that. I'm sorry, it doesn't. But how is NASA supposed to enforce deadlines when they don't even know what their deadlines are? You know what I mean? It all points back exactly to NASA, dude. NASA has to design all the stuff in-house and then tell the contractors to manufacture it. That's how NASA procures things. That's how they did the Saturn V. They definitely didn't do it like this. That's what I'm really wondering. What the heck have you been doing this whole time? Now, with the EUS personnel, they moved them to core stage operations. That makes sense. Right? But what the hell what have you been doing for 10 years? It's a payload fairing. Stealing money. Yeah. The whole pork project thing here kind of makes more sense with Dynetics more than anything. Like, I'd say that the Universal Stage Adapter is probably 80% their fault. But it ain't no coincidence that it's ballooned in roughly the same percentage amount as the EUS guys. It's not a coincidence. Let's check the mobile launcher. Mobile Launcher 2. The mobile launcher is the ground structure NASA uses to assemble, process, transport, and launch the integrated SLS heavy lift rocket in Orion system. ML2 was designed to support larger variants of the Space Launch System. Program is Exploration Ground Systems, prime contractor, Bechtel National Incorporated. The original contract was for $383 million, awarded in June of 2019 by Jared already said they were bending metal for the new adapter too in less than a year. Yeah. Dynetics has 2 large contracts with the Department of Defense, so NASA might be lower priority for them. Yeah, Deadbringer, I totally understand that from a business perspective, but also, fuck you. How about you do what you were paid to do? How about that? Nobody at NASA seemed to ask that question. Excuse my language. Sorry, but it warrants exclamation. So, in March of 2023, that $383 million originally estimated for the mobile launcher had been exhausted, and by May of 2026, cost had ballooned to $1.6 billion. Now, once again, is Bechtel known for milking contracts? Absolutely. They're known for it. With that all being said, guys, I will tell you this right now. Let's read. It's not all their fault. You watch, you'll see. In June of 2019, NASA contracted with Bechtel to design, build, and test the Mobile Launcher 2. Originally valued at $383 million, the cost plus award fee contract required delivery of the launcher to NASA by March of 2023. NASA increased the contract value multiple times over the next several years, with the largest one in August 2022 for more than $400 million to align with Bechtel's latest estimate of completion. In February 2026, NASA issued a stop work order to Bechtel to suspend all work on the ML2. By this time, the Mobile Launcher 2 contract had grown by 300%. Oops. Once again. Weird. It's almost 1.6 billion. Its delivery schedule has been delayed by 3 years to May of 2026. And get no argument from me, Oglux. Why do you think I've been arguing for a national space program to be redundant to commercial partners for the last 15 years? Saying the same damn thing because I read stuff like this and I know how this whole thing works. Like, I'm confident enough in myself to know how this all comes together. Yeah, Fluffy, you noticed that, huh? Weird. Performance. As we reported in June of 2022 and again in August of 2024, Bechtel's performance was a significant driver of cost, schedule, and growth. See? Bechtel underestimated the scope and complexity of Mobile Launcher 2, and due to the structure of the contract, NASA had to assume additional costs required for the launcher's development. In addition, Bechtel's reluctance to utilize NASA expertise, failure to track risk challenges with managing the launcher's weight, and a lack of certified earned value management system impacted the contractor's cost, schedule, and performance. I have a question, fellas. Whose freaking fault is that the freaking thing weighs too much? Who designed it? See what I'm talking about? Now, their reluctance to utilize NASA expertise is kind of stupid. Like I said, it's not all on them. It's not all on NASA. But Bechtel underestimated the scope and complexity of ML2. Who put out the damn contract? Who put out the damn contract and its contract valuation? Hello? If NASA puts out a contract of $383 million to build a mobile launcher, and then Bechtel looks at it and says, "Oh wow, that's way more complicated than what you want," whose fault is that? NASA put out the contract and the contract valuation. That's not Bechtel's fault. And I hate defending Bechtel. That's stupid. I hate defending them. They suck. But also, I know for a fact that this isn't their fault. This isn't all their fault. This is another 60-40 thing. SLS Block 1B is too heavy. It's too heavy. So you have to design a mobile launcher that's lighter than the damn vehicle that it launches. So did Bechtel just blindly bid on this contract? Well, no, Bechtel has plenty of heavy industrial experience. Bechtel designs nuclear power plants and stuff, and heavy industrial infrastructure. They're no stranger to building something like this. But you're asking people that engineer nuclear power plants to basically make the entire mobile launcher out of aerospace-grade components, because it has to be lighter. Once again, look at the mobile launcher. It does not look like any other mobile launcher we've ever seen. It's a space frame, for Christ's sake. Like, it says Bechtel underestimated the scope and complexity of ML2. How is that their fault? What, did NASA not show them the contract that NASA valued at $383 million? No, absolutely not. It's interesting to me that even the OIG doesn't see it. Hi, Rocket Guy. There also wasn't a hard number on the total stack weight when this contract was written. Yeah, how are they supposed to design a launch pad? Bechtel underestimated the scope. How are they supposed to design a launch pad for a rocket that doesn't exist? For a rocket where they have no idea how much the upper stage and payload adapter are going to be, how much mass they're going to be. How do they do that? It's not, look, I hate defending Bechtel, but it definitely is not all their fault. This is NASA. This is NASA's problem. That's Jim. That's another Jim screw up. Badly. But then again, Jim was basically on his way out at that point. I don't think he cared. Well, that's not right. I shouldn't speak for him. But I don't think he... I think if he had stayed on, he probably would have been a little bit different. But a rocket that continued to change and is still continuing to change. Yep. Did they underbid on purpose? Yeah, once again, Huggy, maybe. But NASA is the one that approves that evaluation. Look, man, if you're NASA and you put out a solicitation for a contract, it's called an SBIR, all right? Well, not necessarily an SBIR, but you get the idea. You put out a contract solicitation, right? And internally, you think it's going to cost $1 million, right? And you farm it out. You have 3 companies that reply, right? They respond and say, "Oh, we could do that." So you go to company 1. You think it's going to cost $1 million. You go to company 1. They say $950 million or $950,000. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what company 2 wants. You go to company 2, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to take $1.1 million." So it's like, okay, that's a little bit above our projections. All right. And then you go to company 3, and company 3 says, "Yeah, we can do it for $300,000. We could do it for $300,000. Let us do it." You don't go, "Yeah, we'll choose that guy." No. Because you should know. Company 1 and company 2 are much more in line with your projections for how much this is going to cost. If company 3 comes around and says $300,000 for what you think is going to cost $1 million, you wouldn't give them the contract. That's stupid. Yeah, cost plus award fee.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
This brings me to another kind of rule, or just kind of a motto that helps me understand what's going on with the space program. You guys ever heard the motto, "You get what you pay for"? That is absolutely 100% true every single time with spaceflight. Nobody can do it for cheaper, all right? The only way to beat this problem, to make stuff cheaper, is to beat it with scale. At the end of the day, it's rocket science. The only way to beat the problem is scale. That's it. Nobody's going to make a rocket that's cheaper to fly. Like, "Oh, my rocket costs $2 million to launch into space," right? And it can move 100 tons, right? If somebody came about and said they could do that, you'd look at them funny. Heck, if Elon Musk came around and said that, which he has, people still look at him funny, and he arguably has more experience with scaling rockets. Him and his companies have more experience with scaling rockets than anyone on this planet. Right? You get what you pay for with spaceflight. There's no way of getting around it, because at the end of the day, it's a physics problem and not a monetary one. It's an important thing to understand when you're reading this stuff. And once again, I'm not defending Bechtel completely, guys. They still suck. But also, this is a freaking disaster waiting to happen. All right. NASA's management practices also contributed to the contractor's cost increases and schedule delays. Due to schedule pressures, NASA decided to award the ML2 contract while the EUS, the main driver requiring a second mobile launcher, was early in its design cycle and lacked finalized requirements, impacting the contract approach and independent government cost estimate. Dude, that is exactly what I said before I even got this far in this document. I assure you this is the first time I've read this. That is exactly what I just said. Almost verbatim. Told you. It's not... Bechtel sucks, to be very clear. But NASA also sucks. What do you guys do? Do you even care? Like... And... Normally I would go so far as to be critical of NASA, blah, 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 blah. I think that's changing nowadays, which is good. But honestly, you can't, anybody that knows a little bit about space should be able to look at this and see that it's not just the contractor's fault. You have the same cost overruns, the same schedule delays, and the same amount, the same kind of behavior with NASA management practices, right? Through 3 different programs with 3 different commercial contractors. That's not a coincidence, guys. It's not. Further, NASA lacked an official ML2 project cost and schedule baseline for the first 5 years of the ML2 contract, which limited visibility into the information needed for Congress and others to better hold the agency accountable. Yeah, that's borderline criminal. First 5 years of the ML2 contract. Yeah, that's borderline criminal behavior, not being able to disclose where government funds went. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they send people to jail for that. The agency also had limited leverage to incentivize Bechtel to improve and sustain its performance, relying primarily on the contractor's award fee process. Our prior ML2 audits questioned nearly $6 billion in award fees NASA provided to Bechtel despite the contractor's performance weakness. Aqualex, there you go. Like I said, I hate defending Bechtel. They suck. It should be nowhere near our space program, but here we are. Well, Bechtel's performance somewhat improved after starting construction on ML2 for the period ending in September of 2025. NASA rated the contractor's performance only as satisfactory and cited numerous management deficiencies involving subcontractor oversight, supply scheduling, and workflow efficiency. That's literally the exact same problems that you had on the other 2 programs here. Guys, 3 is a pattern. I'm sorry. This is NASA's fault too. Yeah, Robert, that's exactly it. The point that I'm building to, dude, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The point that I'm building to is the big problem here isn't, you know, a national in-house space program. It's not big lunar program ambitions. It's the lack thereof. There's no plan. Up until very recently, could you tell me when Artemis 3 was supposed to launch? We have a net date, at least now. That's a step in the right direction. That's how I know Jared's doing a good job. Right? The big problem is that we had no goal. If we want to go further into space, we have to have a goal, and the goal has to be bold. That's why, like, with the president, like, you know, I don't like talking about him on here, not because I hate him or like him. I just don't like to, but it's a good idea to give NASA a goal to get back to the moon in 2028. That is a good idea. I don't care if you like him. I don't care if you hate him. That's a good call. Just like it was a good call in 2024. It was a good call in 2019 to set a lunar landing date in 2024. That ultimately didn't happen. Could have told you that, but... Yeah, Fluffy. We'll launch when they're ready is code speak in space flights for I have no idea what I'm doing. You tagged that NASA space flight. Nice, Seth. How about they didn't go for an interim upper stage in the first place? Well, yeah, the big problem is that, yeah, because SLS had no goal, there's really no reason to build out everything that you need. And this is why I always say that, you know, they canceled Constellation, right? And they cited, well, we saved a ton of money. We saved $30 billion over the next 10 years by canceling the Constellation program. And that is somehow cited as some form of fiscal responsibility. Well, look at all this money we saved. Okay, look at that moon that you didn't land on either. Hello? You get what you pay for with spaceflight. Remember that. Always. That is the unifying thing here. You get what you pay for. Should NASA have designed HLS-2? Rocket science, I said NASA needs to build their own lander in 2019. NASA should build a hypergolic lander, and they should have co-manifested it with the EUS to land on the moon in 2019. The time to do that was then. And honestly, if Jim had stayed in office, that's probably what would have happened. He was Maybe not a hypergolic lander, but we save $30 billion over the next 10 years, but over the next 20 years, we're going to lose 40. That's right. NASA needs a goal. Landing on the moon in 2028 is a good goal. And that has allowed Jared Isaacman to mobilize and honestly get rid of all this crap that... It's not crap, but yeah, I don't... He's doing things to get to that goal, which I appreciate. It's like I said, when I was listening to him responding to my questions, one, the guy has a really good understanding of the scope of spaceflight architecture, and I really appreciate that. That really made my day. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. Great. Good. Second, I had a conversation with the NASA administrator. That was pretty sick, actually. Jared, I'd love to talk to you again, dude. Third, look, is the architecture that we have the best thing? No, it's not the best, but it's going to work. And that's a good step in the right direction, because that whole lunar landing thing, you should probably do that. Went over that already. Maybe they resurrect Altair. A hot take, Aqualex, they should never have implemented SLD and gone with it, brought back the Altair lander instead. Starship, HLS, and a NASA in-house Altair lander with a higher energy upper stage from SLS we would have no problems right now. Starship to land your heavy components in an uncrewed capacity, Altair to go down there and pick them up off the ground when Starship drops them. Simple as that. Heavy lander and a light lander. Done. But, you know, they decided to do SLD and contract out a lunar lander to Blue Origin, a company that has no experience doing any type of things in space at the time, and still arguably don't. Sorry, guys. I really do like Blue. Like, Blue should have started with clips. Honestly, you should have started with clips. Just saying. Blue Moon Mark 1 should be commercial lunar payload services, but nobody, like I said, nobody's ready for that. Mooner, sorry, too much Kerbal. So what's the plan for ML2 now? We'll see. Hermit the Trog, 9-month resub. Thank you. Zero's had a 95-monther in there too. Thanks, bud. All this feels similar to the mismanagement that led to Challenger, just with different consequences. Yes, Aqualex. It starts with NASA not designing the hardware. That was the biggest change between Constellation and SLS. Dude, I cannot stress this enough. Canceling Constellation, we are reeling from the effects of that 15 years down the road. And we will be reeling from the effects of this. NASA will be, not necessarily the commercial contractors. If anything, it gave them their foot in the door, which is a good thing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's not. But yeah, if we, like I said, if we just kept going with Constellation and just funded the program and gotten it done, like, yeah, it would have been a little behind schedule, but we'd be on the moon right now.
Oh, this is space. I'm in space.
Thank you for gifting us up.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Not trying to be rude, but this president's last admin also set a deadline for landing on the moon, in 2020. How did that go? Having a deadline is good, but having a deadline and taking steps in accomplishing it are two different things.
The incumbent president did not have a goal of getting to the moon in 2020. It was 2024, at the end of what would have been his second term. That's not correct. I agree. They're setting the deadline is what the executive branch should be doing. It's up to everyone else to complete it. That part I agree with. All right, let's keep going. Projected cost and schedule to complete. If Bechtel was to continue ML2 to completion, in our judgment, the overall contract cost would have been significantly higher, and the delivery schedule would have been further delayed. Based on trends in Bechtel's monthly financial management reports over the past 3 years since construction began, we project the ML2 contract's cost could have climbed to $2 billion, 5 times more than planned, and over $140 million higher than Bechtel's latest estimate at completion in February of 2026. Similarly, the launcher would not be ready for delivery to NASA until December of 2026, a delay of more than 3.5 years. Notably, NASA would still need to perform verification and validation testing after this delivery to ensure that the launcher operated as expected prior to using it for any Artemis launches. This process could take 1 to 2 years, meaning ML2 would likely not have been operational until at least 2028. Figure 3 depicts Bechtel's historical estimate at completion and our projected cost and schedule for completing ML2. That's... And man, I appreciate you being unbiased in that manner. I really do. That's not easy to do it's not easy for people to do nowadays, you know? But it is. It's good. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the problem with your plan is that the money is in the design, not manufacturing. That's why companies want to bid on design plus manufacturing. It's not NASA's problem that the companies want to design the stuff. All right? It's not. I get it. Broken clock is right twice a day. Dude, I don't care. It's good. It's a good thing. I don't care. Dude, I'm taking the W, all right? I'm taking the freaking W for space, all right? I'm going to take it, and I'm going to run away with it, and you're not catching me. Does that make sense? I'm going to take this W, I'm going to run away with it, and I'm never giving it back. Like Cal Naughton Jr. in Talladega Nights. So, Luke, I know it's on a technicality, but if you try to take this first place trophy away from me, I'm going to punch you right in the face. Like, it's true. Very interesting here. Honestly, the mobile launcher would have been on time for NASA's goals. I'm telling you. I'm telling you that the universal stage adapter is what screwed them. If that damn thing, if Dynetics had, you know, prioritized this, because, you know, when somebody gives you money, you usually give them a service. That's how how oral system is supposed to work. You know, goods for services, like money for services. It's kind of how they're supposed to work. If you don't do that, it's something else that not particularly fond of. Yeah, it looks like the EUS and the mobile launcher would have been ready on time. It's the stage adapter, and unfortunately, you need that. Money can be exchanged for goods and services. Oh, look. A very similar budget projection and a 300% cost overrun. The tower was ready. I know, goalie. But the tower being ready, and heck, even the EUS being ready means nothing if you don't have the right adapter to put Orion up at the top. If any one of these particular things is behind schedule, the whole system doesn't work, which I think is a national security risk in itself, but, you know, screw me for wanting my space program to actually do something as a taxpayer, right? Like, weird. This is why Jared said what he said. When I asked him about this, he just said it wouldn't have been ready. But Jared ain't gonna, dude, He's the NASA administrator. He ain't gonna go on there and throw Dynetics under the bus. He wouldn't do that. He would just say, look, none of this stuff was going to be ready and call it a day. Yeah, that's where that, oh, it would have been ready. No, it wouldn't have. Oh, it would have been ready. No, it wouldn't have. That's where that's coming from. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, the point that I'm trying to get at is this all stems from NASA not having a good plan, and a good plan comes from the top. Now that we have a plan, right, there's nothing really here to get pissy about, unless you really liked ML2, and I'm still kind of bumming that he doesn't want to use it, but oh, this should be good. Can I read the footnotes here? No, 2024 in report, we projected that if cost and schedule growth trends continued, contract costs could reach as high as 2.5 billion, and the launcher would be delivered in August of 2027. Our updated projection reflects Bechtel's relative performance improvements since starting the construction phase. Yeah, Jared wouldn't say this, I don't think, but the mobile launcher would have been ready. The problem is that great, you have a launch pad that's ready and no rocket. Yeah, exactly, Shmem. Exactly. Even if it's deserved, he wouldn't have done that. Look, you don't go and throw somebody under the bus in public, right? That's a management problem, not Bechtel's at that point. I'm telling you, Deadbringer, look, I want to hate Bechtel as much as the next dude, but mobile launch, this OIG report is pretty damn conclusive. The mobile launcher would have been done on time. The rocket would not have been done on time. You don't do it because you might need them in the future. Exactly, Nosful. Yep. Let me read up on YouTube chat. Yeah, rant over. Yeah. Positives are definitely that these companies remain funded. Positives are definitely that these companies remain funded. They will be there for other contracts and hopefully with clearer goals, and contract oversight can be better utilized in the future. Yep. So basically, if we would have had a plan and had all the information, we wouldn't be in this deep pocket issue.
Go at throttle up.
If NASA had just designed the rocket for the goal, right? And gone from there, designed a rocket around a presidential goal, constellation, or anything else, yeah, we wouldn't be in this position. That's where it starts. It starts with making a goal. You have to have a spaceflight initiative. NASA has to work like that, or else it just doesn't do anything. Hey, Waz, what's going on? 5 whole years, 60-month resub, dude. You got your worm logo. Thank you very much. They get away with it because generally they deliver on time or a little late and over budget, but they don't keep getting contracts by not doing the job overall. Like, yeah, exactly, Poison. I want to hate Bechtel like completely here, but I'm telling you, dudes, it ain't their fault. It's not entirely their fault. It looks like they did their standard underbidding stuff that they always do. Guys, all of this points to NASA. Moreover, all of this points to NASA management, particularly from basically about 2019 until the beginning of this year. Basically when Jared came in. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I tried to give that guy the benefit of the doubt, dude. But, dude, generally, what the frick were you doing? What were you doing? What were you doing for 4 years? Anyway. Pudding, yep. Mm-hmm. Habitation and logistics outpost. Oh, boy. Yeah, I know, Element, right? Element, I'll be 100% honest with you. I think I am physically incapable of milking government contracts because I would not be able to live with myself. The shame would be so great, I would just probably drive off of a bridge somewhere. I can't, I am physically incapable of doing that. Just from a sheer ethical standpoint, I cannot do that. I won't do that. I can't do that. Can't operate like that. I would hate myself. More than I already do. What, you don't like the Marvin emote, Vanna? Goalie, it sounds really bad, and I may take a lot of heat from this, but realistically, they did what any company would do. They made as much damn money as they possibly could, and they milked this cow as much as they could, but at the end of the day, they would have delivered before the rocket was ready. Yep. Goalie, I'll be 100% honest with you. And once again, another unpopular opinion. I would have paid them. If it was going to get done on time, sure, absolutely. It's what Poison was saying. You can hate them, but they, you know why? You know why Bechtel keeps getting contracts? Because they actually finish stuff. That's guys. Like I said, this OIG report's pretty damning. The ML would have been ready on time. Mobile Launcher 2 would have been ready on time, but Mobile Launcher 2 being ready on time is kind of useless if you don't have an upper stage. Mobile Launcher 2 would have been ready, outfitted, ready to go, even by NASA's own projections in the middle of 2028, if I saw that right. Not have been operational until at least 2028. Guess what? That's in line with the presidential goals. Having no, dude. Like, put this into comparison. Bechtel gets handed this ridiculous contract to build this ridiculous mobile launcher that needs to be completely over-engineered because the rocket is too heavy and it also doesn't exist. And they did, you can hate them if you want to, they belted this thing out in 5 years, more or less. They belted it out 2019 to 2026. Well, that's a little bit more than 5 years, but they belted this thing 7 years. That's still pretty bad, but also it's finished, it's there, and it would have been ready on time. Meanwhile, Dynetics over here with their universal stage adapter got paid $353 million to make a frigging payload fairing. And it's taken, that contract was, see, here's the thing. Look at this. June of 2017. Let's go up to the EUS up here. February 2017. They awarded the contract for the mobile launcher in 2019 because any reasonable freaking person, Jim, would have figured that at least these designs would have been to critical design review, right? And ready to go. And the mobile launcher project, that's the reason why they gave it a cost plus contract, because they knew the stuff wasn't going to be ready, right? And yet Bechtel has still cranked out a mobile launcher for a rocket that hasn't been designed yet. Like, once again, you can hate Bechtel, that's fine. Do they milk contracts? Absolutely. This is not their fault. I don't like defending them. How about you just do it for how much it costs and make a little bit after that, right? But also, they did get it done. Master Goon, you're the GOAT. Hey, thanks, man. Is the universal stage adapter composite or is it common aluminum? It looks like composite aluminum honeycomb. Yeah, it's aluminum composite. So honeycomb aluminum sandwiched in carbon fiber. It's a payload fairing, dude. It's a fairing. That's what it is. Just What bothers me is how this got past the mechanism that almost killed Viper. Yeah, Aqualex, that was my biggest criticism of Viper, that it's selective enforcement of contract overruns. All right, how can you say Viper getting overrun by like $100 million is warrant for cancellation, and this program going over budget by 314% to $1.6 billion off an original $383 million contract evaluation and be, oh yeah, that's fine. That also happened under Bill Nelson, might I add. Boy, did he suck. Like, I think, man, I didn't think about it too much at the time, but holy crap. What a putz, dude. Ugh. All right. Habitation and Logistics Outpost. Halo was a key part of the initial capability of NASA's Gateway, a lunar orbiting space station that would have provided a staging location for lunar and deep space operations. Module was designed to provide astronauts with a living and working space, as well as additional life support systems for a docked Orion. That's actually not bad. That's not that bad of an overrun, interestingly enough. In July of 2019, NASA sole sourced the acquisition of Gateway's Halo to Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems, later awarding the company $187 million to complete the preliminary design of the module. 2 years later, NASA converted Halo to a firm fixed price. Can I read that again? NASA sole sourced acquisition of Gateway to Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems, awarding the company $187 million to complete the preliminary design of the module. 2 years later, NASA converted Halo to a firm fixed price contract with a combined contract value of $1.3 billion through the delivery of the module in May of 2025. And subsequent launch preparations. Then, in September of 2024, citing difficulties administering a development project with a firm. In September of 2024, citing difficulties administering a development project with a firm fixed price contract type, NASA converted Halo to a cost plus award fee contract, increasing the combined value of the contract to $1.8 billion and delaying delivery of the module to October of 2026. Oh my God. However, in April of 2026, the agency issued a stop work order to Northrop Grumman for its work on the Halo contract. By then, the value of the contract had risen to $1.9 billion, and Northrop Grumman was working to address corrosion throughout the Halo module's primary structure, which would significantly impact the project's schedule. Oh. Performance. In November of 2020, we reported that NASA's acquisition of the Halo module before fully funding. In November of 2020, we reported that NASA's acquisition of the Halo module before fully defining the Gateway's requirements added significant cost to the development effort and increased the risk of future schedule delays and additional cost increases. One major requirement change was NASA's decision in February of 2020 to launch Halo with Gateway's power and propulsion element on one rocket. I said that was a stupid idea. I said that. I said that it was a dumb idea. And it's still a dumb idea. Yeah, great. You save money by using a cheaper rocket, but now you have to redesign your stupid payload and the costs are going to balloon. I said that in February of 2020. I said that. God damn it. I'm tired of being right. Man, I'm tired of being right. Oh, that's
That one frosts my gonads a little bit, Chad. I'm not gonna lie to you. Raising concerns that the two elements together would be too heavy to launch on any commercially available rocket. That's me smug face. See smug face. Furthermore, driven by the necessity to meet Artemis's launch schedules, the Gateway program worked towards unrealistic schedules through the life cycle of the habitation and logistics outpost. For example, NASA's firm fixed price contract with Northrop Grumman aimed for a 2024 launch readiness date despite multiple schedule analysis showing a less than 1% likelihood of success. Sad, you're saying it's not just about cost though, it's also about the schedule. With this, the two modules would have been up there before Block 1B launches, which could have taken up IHAB on the first flight. Yeah, it could have, if that actually had made things go faster, but once again, it did not. 2 years later, the Gateway program's independent standard review board found a 0% likelihood of meeting the launch readiness date, which had since slipped to October of 2025. The board noted that the Gateway program's lack of schedule realism may be driving suboptimal engineering decisions during developments. Oh yeah, the guy that was the program manager for Gateway is running the Moonbase program now. Just for what it's worth. Lack of schedule realism may be driving suboptimal engineering decisions during development. Compounding these problems, Northrop Grumman and its network of subcontractors faced numerous performance issues during Halo's development. For example, in 2025, the Northrop Grumman subcontractor responsible for manufacturing Halo's primary structure, we're subcontracting out primary structures. For example, in 2025, the Northrop Grumman subcontractor responsible for manufacturing Halo's primary structure discovered widespread corrosion throughout the module. As a result, Northrop Grumman's estimated delivery date slipped 6 months to July of 2028, and the corrosion mitigation became an emerging program risk. I do believe the subcontractor on Halo is Thales Alenia, but they just said subcontractor, but I don't know. To NASA's credit, the agency was accurately critical of Northrop Grumman's management of its Halo subcontractors. In the first Halo award fee evaluation in May of 2025, NASA criticized the contractor's reactive schedule approach and ineffective subcontractor management. NASA evaluators added that the agency lacks confidence in Northrop Grumman's schedule data following consistent schedule slips across nearly all major hardware items. As of April of 2026, NASA was still evaluating whether the Halo module could be repurposed for lunar surface applications. If Northrop Grumman was to continue Halo to completion, in our judgment, the overall contract costs would have continued to rise and the delivery schedule would have been further delayed. Based on trends in Northrop Grumman's monthly schedule reporting data over the past 1.5 years since the contract was converted to cost plus, we project the Halo would not have been delivered to NASA until July of 2031. Bro, it's a tube! It's a freaking tube! It's a tube! Holy hell, it's a tube. It's a freaking cylinder. A cylinder. You're paying $1.8 billion for a fucking cylinder. Moreover, given the additional time to integrate the Halo module with the power and propulsion element pre-launch, as well as the approximately 10 months needed to reach its designated lunar orbit, we estimate that the Gateway would not have been operational until at least 2032. Due to the projected end date far into the future and limited availability of contractor monthly financial management reports, we were unable to perform a complete cost projection for it. Yeah, I know, Arian Rudd, right? So, guys, I don't even want to start with untangling this freaking mess. So, okay, look, I know everybody's like, I hate cost plus. Well, we love firm fixed price contracts. Firm fixed price contracts for development is a recipe for disaster at the for a national space program. It is a recipe for disaster, and this is another case in point. Moreover, whoever came up with the stupid decision to save money by launching this on a Falcon Heavy, right, instead of SLS, yeah. I remember reading all the articles when we did that space news, how, oh my gosh, it's such a good move for NASA. We're saving so much money this way. We're saving so much money. Yeah, your cost of launch went down, but your payload contracting structure just went through the roof because you had to convert it back to a development contract, because to launch these things co-manifested on a Falcon Heavy, you have to redesign the entire structure. The whole point of Gateway was that the power and propulsion element was an off-the-shelf component. It was a modified geostationary satellite bus with advanced propulsion on it. That was supposed to save money. Now that you're co-manifesting it and putting this ridiculous Halo module on top of it and launching it on one rocket, instead of co-manifesting it on an SLS Block 1B like it was supposed to, you're taking all the money that you saved from using an off-the-shelf modified component and throwing it right into the dumpster. I said this. Look, I'm not trying to say I told you so. I'm confident enough that I know this industry good enough to know when I'm right. Okay? And I'll also tell you when I'm wrong. I said that putting this thing on Falcon Heavy is going to end up costing way more money, and I was absolutely right. I wish I had that space news that I did that day. So they could just withhold that information? Yeah, apparently, BD, which I think is ridiculous in itself, but whatever. How do these bad decisions get made? It all starts with whatever your overall goal is. That, and I think the incessant drive for commercialization and saving money has ended up saving NASA money. But the problem is that when you do spaceflight, you got to spend money if you want to get something done. That's the problem. Yeah, they've changed the contracting structure on Halo 2 times. Well, 3 times. So they awarded it, changed it, and then changed it again later, and then changed the vehicle on top of that. And now NASA is wondering why Northrop Grumman hasn't finished it. Like, once again, it kind of is on Northrop Grumman for subcontracting out a primary structure. That's how are you that you're the prime contractor? You don't even make anything. You just put the stupid thing together. Like, not settling prompt completion times allows mission creep and rot to set in. Yep. Yeah, Northrop Grumman is very heavy subcontractor. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the same deal with Antares. They couldn't even be bothered with engineering a first stage for their own rocket. They contracted Firefly to do it. I still think that's wicked funny because if Northrop Grumman had just decided to go through with Omega, you know, and you know, off-ramped Orion, or not Orion, Antares, they could be bidding on NSSL contracts at this point, but nope, can't do that. Yeah, Siret, that's exactly it. At this point, every time NASA says we are saving money, it's a red flag. Guys, once again, this is a pattern of behavior that I have noticed over my tenure here covering the spaceflight program. Anytime someone says we're saving money at NASA, that is doublespeak for defunding stuff. All right? So, you know, they're going to say, oh, we saved all this money by not doing this way. Okay? It seems like a good idea. At face value, you're like, oh, yeah, you save money. You're very fiscally responsible. Brother, it's space flight we're talking about here. Space flight is not an inexpensive endeavor. You're not going to pay your way into orbit. Okay? You could throw crazy amounts of money at the problem and get nowhere near it. Blue Origin. Look at how much money they've dumped into the Starship program at SpaceX. It hasn't gotten to orbit yet. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be fiscally. I mean, that's kind of an argument. That's kind of an argument in the opposite direction. It is expensive, though. It's an expensive endeavor. You can't save money by, you know, defund, like, oh, well, if we cancel SLS, we could save money. Yeah, you also can't get to the moon. Dave Lim should be releasing more info soon. Yeah, I heard about that, Rocket. Yeah. No, all good. The Blue Origin and SpaceX jab is kind of arguing in the opposite direction. Sorry about that. Like, you know, you can't say you're saving money, but you can't dump money at the problem either. But it is still expensive at the end of the day. Not as expensive as you might think, but it is still expensive. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, excuse me. The messed up thing is that the contract awards rewarded heavily subcontracted proposals in their evaluation scores. Yeah. Because NASA is heavily incentivized to, with any commercial partners, there are tons of contract incentives to subcontract. That's why you see a lot of horizontal integration here across the program. NASA has huge incentives to do that. They'll pay you more money if you use more subcontractors, which is dumb, but whatever. What I think is kind of funny.
This
hey,
is space.
Space Pope,
I'm in space.
2137, then gifted 5 subs. What's up, dude? Cyborg, what are you saying? What I think is kind of funny is Eclipse in the A330 configuration, I don't think can do a NSSL, but with the Firefly second stage, it can. Cygnus, now Northrop Grumman, formerly Orbital Sciences, well, OATK, then Orbital Sciences, also had its primary structure subcontracted to Thales Alenia Space. ATV was built by Thales Alenia, MPLM was Thales Alenia, Cygnus, ATV, all Thales Alenia, and they were historically on time and at cost. Yeah, exactly, Dead. Bring it. You know, that's a really good thing to bring up. Thales Alenia has delivered on time. When you change the contracting structure 2 times through a program cycle, changing your cash allotment for development, first of all constricting it and then not constricting it, what are they supposed to do? No, I got you, Debringer. It's okay. I know what you're trying to say. To be fair, arguing that Starship can't go to orbit is stupid. No, it goes, I know it'll reach orbit. The point that I was trying to illustrate is that, look, you could throw a lot of money at the problem. You're still not going to get there. But throwing a little bit of money at the problem is definitely not going to get you there. That's what I was trying to say. I didn't phrase it correctly. Sorry. I've read through a lot of information here real quick. So apologies. I love guys, like, I like dumping on the commercial contracts. I like dumping on NASA, but I don't do it just because I like doing it. I do it because it's deserved. But also, dude, I'm about as big of a SpaceX fanboy as you're gonna find. Like, and once again, I'm not trying to just turn this into a rant. What I'm trying to do is just understand this. You can't regulate your way to a lunar program. You can't. You can't spend money like crazy to get a lunar program either. But if you don't spend any money, if you save money, you're definitely not getting there, right? The thing is with spaceflight, and that's the overarching thing, and that's something that you know, if you're going to make light of all this information, the big thing to understand is that, look, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for with space. No one's going to save money getting to space for cheaper. The only way to beat it is what SpaceX does, is beat it with scale. The only way to lower costs. That's the only way. Spaceflight is not going to get less complicated because you're still working in the realm of physics. Physics isn't going to change. At least I don't think. Pretty sure it won't. Hasn't changed in a long time. I don't think the laws of physics are going to change anytime soon, right? Unless we're in the Matrix, in which case maybe. Hackermans, I'm in. But at the end of the day, it's complicated. It's always going to be complicated. The only way to beat it is with scale. It's crazy to me that people don't understand this. And it's even crazier to me that people that work at NASA don't understand this problem either. Anyway, let's read what the OIG conclusion is and put a cap on this. Let's see what we got. NASA's reformulation of the Artemis campaign to meet the president's national space policy and increase its cadence of missions by standardizing the SLS heavy lift rocket resulted in the termination or repurposing of several Artemis-related systems, including the EUS, Universal Stage Adapter, Mobile Launcher 2, and the Habitation and Logistics Outpost. Over the course of their life cycles, the combined contract values for these efforts ballooned from nearly $2.8 billion to $5.9 billion, and NASA extended their contracted delivery dates by up to 7 years. However, our projections indicate that if NASA allowed work to continue to completion, the systems would have cost more and taken longer than what was on contract. While NASA is currently evaluating potential alternative uses for hardware investments, decisions regarding whether and to what extent the hardware can be repurposed are not finalized. Though we are not making any recommendations, the information collected and presented in this memorandum will be included in our audit of NASA's terminated missions, where we will assess the agency's management of developed assets and the impacts of their cancellation on associated workforce, contractors, and international partners. We provided the agency an opportunity to comment on a draft of this interim memorandum. Management's response is reproduced in Enclosure 2, and technical comments provided by management have been incorporated as appropriate. Where's the response? I want to see what Lori Glaze said about this. NASA appreciates the opportunity to review and comment on the OIG draft interview. Okay, all right, that's fluff. NASA's Ignition Day was a public announcement and strategic rollout of a restructured Artemis campaign, outlining a streamlined affordability-focused architecture designed to enable a sustainable annual cadence of crewed lunar landings. There's those words again. These strategic updates align with the president's direction to sustain American leadership in space and to build an enduring presence on the lunar surface. The OIG's observations regarding historical cost and schedule performance help underscore why a streamlined architectural approach is beneficial for long-term mission success. See, we like Lori. Lori is cool. Do you know why we like Lori? Runs the Artemis program. Do you know why we like her? Because she knows what the hell she's doing. That's why we like Lori. Be like Lori. She's cool. Cutting all of those failing programs is saving money. That's correct, Dean. And now we have less capability. It rings true every time. But generally, and this is going to kind of undermine the entire thing I've been saying this whole freaking time, generally that's a bad thing in this particular case, in this particular scenario. That's honestly, it's the right move. I don't blame Jared Isaacman for going in here and getting rid of all this crap. Now, if I was the admin, I wouldn't have canceled the EUS, but I wouldn't have had the balls to do that. I would have canceled the Universal Stage Adapter contract and given it to somebody that wanted to do it, and wanted to do it quickly. But dude, like I said, can you imagine if you become NASA administrator and the OIG, you're in Jared's shoes and the OIG hands you this? I'd be like, are you kidding me right now? I wouldn't have canceled the EUS and ML2. Exactly, Deadbringer. What I would have done is B1S Block 1 Centaur or SLS Block 1 standardized, and I would work around Mobile Launcher 1 and redesign the ICPSU to work with the Centaur. That shouldn't be too hard. That would require a bit of, downtime on Mobile Launcher 1, but your vehicle procurement is going to take time. So I would have standardized ML1 around B1S, which is pretty much what they're doing. And I would have kept ML2 and EUS ready for the missions that come after. But then again, Jared did make a good point in what he said. He said that co-manifesting payloads makes no sense if you don't have gateway, which he is technically right about, which means the EUS is inadequate for moon base exploration. And he's right. He's right. He's not wrong. You need a higher energy solution if you're going to shift focus from gateway to actually a lunar surface base. So that's why if I ever have the pleasure of interviewing Jared again, I would ask him if he's looking for a high energy solution for SLS. Could be a NASA designed stage. I don't really care. Plenty of off-the-shelf propulsion here that could work. There's plenty. There's engine propulsion all over the place that you could use for a great upper stage. 7.5 earthquake in Venezuela. Oh dear. How much do you think they could sell ML2 for? Sell it. Who's going to use it? You don't have 2 launch pads for that thing to be used with. You gave one, you leased one out to SpaceX. J2X? No. Yeah, ML2 scrap. Like, it'd be better to, like I said, it would be better to just have kept EUS and ML2 going and then worked around standardized Block 1. But once again, like I said, Jared brought this up. Like, what are you going to use it for? Even if you have a Block 1B right now, what are you going to use it for? Co-manifesting payloads? It's useless. There's no gateway. There's no point. And he's right. I hate that. I hate that he's right. But the reality of the situation is that the exploration upper stage it's not really adequate for lunar surface operations. It's really not. You would need a pretty damn big upgraded version of SLS to do something like that, where you can hurl the EUS at the moon with 45 to 50 metric ton payload capacity, because we designed Orion to get to Gateway as well. Orion not being able to capture a co-manifested payload into low lunar orbit is a huge oversight in an entire Artemis architecture. Even now, that anemic service module, and this is not a mark against the Europeans, the European service module did great. Fixture pressure control assemblies, fixture PCAs, they broke on Artemis 2, and fix that. The Europeans built what we told them to make. They built the ESM. That's the real big problem here, that Orion is anemic. It has an anemic surface module that's designed for Mars missions. It's really not designed for lunar exploration. And that hinders this. Now, if that hinders this problem, now, if we gave SLS a higher energy upper stage, like an S4B or something, If we just decided we wanted to build another Saturn V third stage, restart the S4B production line, all right? And then put a B3U behind the dang thing instead of a J2, right? And then we built an adapter with Orion on the top, right? That might afford you a big enough lander where the lander could be doing your circularization and bring Orion and the lander down into low lunar, and then the lander can go down to the surface. You would need a 2-stage ascent module with a big descent module in this regard. But once again, if that's not in the mainline scope of getting to the moon, right? Because of Block 1S, right? Because of the Centaur, SLS Centaur, then there's really, like, you can kind of sit there and afford to take your time, but by the time you get all that finished, it's going to be 2035 and we're already going to have a moon base on the moon. That's why Jared got rid of it. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Robert, I know. With Dynetics and Northrop Grumman, yeah. Once again, this is not entirely on all the contractors. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. If NASA keeps changing the game over and over and over again and keep changing the rules, how are you supposed to deliver anything on time? Can you not ask Jared for an interview? I feel like you'd get the answers you need. I talked to him on Flame Trench, Trey. Trey, were you not there for that? Oh, geez, Fox. Glad I could keep you company. Yeah, once again, reading what I read here, I understand. Like, do I necessarily agree with Jared's decisions? No, not necessarily, but I see why he did it. I get it. I see why he did. Why they're just like, screw that. We're not doing any of that. I can absolutely see why they did all this. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, there's no point in having the EUS if you standardize around Centaur. Now, the flip side of that, and this is why I don't necessarily agree with it, is that I would honestly, if this was me, I would have canceled Dynetics' contract and I would have been like, no, you guys don't build this anymore. I would have brought it in-house, just like Jared brought the SLS Centaur adapter in-house. If you brought the adapter, the universal stage adapter in-house, you could have a standardized Block 1 around, or standardized SLS around the EUS. It seems like the EUS and ML2 were going to be finished in time. It's that universal stage adapter that was not. So, okay, do you need co-manifested payload capability? No, not really. But anything that SLS Centaur can do, SLS EUS could do, and more. I'd prefer that payload flexibility because, like I said, it very much seems like all of this, with the exception of the universal stage adapter, even by the OIG's pessimistic schedule projections, would have been more or less ready in 2028. But obviously we don't know for sure. So, but anyway, let's finish reading what Laurie's saying. The interim memorandum documents substantial growth from the original baseline cost and schedule for all 4 systems. And NASA agrees that each system has experienced significant challenges due to contractor performance issues, evolving mission requirements. Evolving mission requirements is a NASA problem. Supply chain constraints. A lot of these programs did work through COVID, which is why the budgets did balloon. I forgot to mention that. They couldn't work. COVID said a lot of these projects were deemed not vital, and they didn't work through them. That's another important thing to understand. A lot of these projects were basically shelved for probably about a year because of COVID. And workforce management complexities. However, these challenges must be understood within the broader architectural evolution of the Artemis campaign. Since these systems' inception, including the shift towards standardized mission designs, exemplified by the Artemis II reference mission, that are central to establishing a discipline and repeatable cadence. As the campaign matured, foundational assumptions regarding staging, co-manifest payloads, and launch vehicle configurations changed materially. No, Dianetics is something different, Bob. We're talking about Dynetics. Dianetics that's a different company, you know? No, that's something different, dude. While the OIG's projections indicate that continuing these systems would likely increase total lifecycle cost, NASA stresses that these projections rely on past performance under outdated architectural assumptions that do not reflect the ignition day principles of discipline, affordability, simplification, and speed. See, I would argue that if you want discipline, simplification, and speed, that you're going to need to spend money, but yeah, lava. Interesting. I would say less waste leads to more affordability. Yeah, not without spending a lot of money though to get to these points. You got to train up people. Coming up with a simplified, standardized rocket design is not something that you just poop out, right? Like, the agency acknowledged the OIG's examples where evolving requirements contributed to cost scheduling growth. NASA is enhancing internal controls to lock requirements earlier in the development cycle and applying lessons learned to drive future procurements towards the firm fixed price structures where practicable. Sorry, I need to reread the sentence. I didn't read that right. It's not that it's a bad sentence. NASA is enhancing internal controls to lock requirements earlier in the development cycle and applying lessons learned to drive future procurements towards firm fixed price structures where practicable and to leverage commercial offerings. Through Artemis reformulation, the agency has reprioritized investment into systems that directly support the annual landing cadence and surface sustainability strategy. NASA notes that the challenges summarized in the memorandum, cost growth, schedule slips, contractor performance issues, and evolving mission requirements reinforce the rationale behind the decisions publicly announced during Ignition Day to streamline the Artemis architecture, modernize acquisition practices, and align programs with the nation's objective for sustained lunar presence. Yeah, Trey, we'll see. The agency looks forward to supporting the OIG's continued audit work on terminated missions and remains committed to transparency, responsible stewardship, and advancing America's leadership in lunar exploration. We reviewed the draft memorandum for information that should not be publicly released. As a result of this review, we have not identified information that should not be publicly released. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. Okay. No, I appreciate that they want to standardize design requirements. I appreciate it. Like I said, I don't blame Jared for what he did. I wouldn't have canceled ML2, but I mean, what are you going to do? Redesign it for a new upper stage? I mean, honestly, yes, but and I would really hope that the money from these programs can be allocated somewhere else, because usually when you cancel a program, you don't get that money back. You don't get to choose where that money is allocated. Congress does. But yeah, dude, that was a hell of a report, dudes. I honestly see why Jared did what he did. There's no way he didn't know this information when he became administrator. I have my reservations about standardizing a Centaur upper stage for SLS. I have my reservations about that. I originally said that a Centaur adapter is... A Centaur adapter for SLS would take just the same amount of time as just completing the EUS. Turns out that that's not far off from what actually is going on. Because it's not the EUS that wouldn't have been on time. It's that stupid adapter. The future of SLS seems weird. I hope Jared comes on here or somewhere. I mean, if you listen to what he said during Flame Trench Trade, like... He seemed to indicate at least a near future requirement for SLS well into the 2030s, which is okay. I've often said that what SLS really needs to do is launch more, and we need to get about 20 to 30 launches out of that thing. And just keep doing it until a commercial solution pops up that is mass produced, that is cheaper. Starship. If Starship gets a human rating certification from NASA, that's basically the nail in the coffin for SLS, honestly. Personally, I don't think that's a good idea, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they want to do. I've often said that NASA should only retire their... I was about to say their in-house design rocket, but we learned from this OIG report that SLS is not designed in-house. It's mandated. And the core stage and the boosters are mandated from Congress. So Congress designed the core stage and the boosters. Boeing designed the EUS. Dynetics designed the freaking universal stage adapter. And the Europeans designed the service module. And Lockheed designed Orion. So, I mean, to be fair, Orion is a NASA design. So I would say Orion is how it gets done correctly. And I'm pretty sure we saw the fruits of that labor for Artemis 2. Can NASA purchase starships from SpaceX? Nader, that is Orion on Blue Origin. Sure, that's a good idea. Until the SRB segments run out. Yeah, that also could be a problem, Phil. Like, I have no problem with getting rid of SLS as long as we have an analog solution that NASA can procure. NASA wouldn't go around designing a business jet, right? Why would you do that? There's plenty of commercial off-the-shelf business jets that you could buy. They would just go buy a 737, right? If space flight gets to the point where spacecraft are as plentiful as, you know, even like airplanes, like if starships are as plentiful as like a 747, do you see 747s all the time? No, but they're around, right? We even get to like those production numbers, then NASA should just dump whatever they have and just buy the 39A Starship pad and buy a fleet of starships and use that for whatever they want. I think, yeah, Nader, that's what they should do when that door opens, so to speak. Contract SpaceX to build a pad for NASA. Nader, no, buy 39A. Buy the pad at 39A. Have SpaceX teach you how to operate it. Buy a fleet of starships. Subcontract SpaceX to maintain them, and then use them for NASA missions. Use them for human exploration. In the same exact way that the aeronautics division at NASA wouldn't go building their own damn plane. They would just buy one. They don't need to buy 39A, just let the lease run out. Yeah, Spoil, there you go. Yeah. The more... Guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I hate admitting that the EUS is a waste of time. But it's a waste of time. I hate admitting that. I hate it. I hate it so much, dude. The reason why I don't like it is because over time, I have been throughout, let's just say throughout the last 30 years of NASA complete screw ups, we've always ended up getting rid of hardware that could have been useful, right? Under the guise of saving money, etc., 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 right? Like Venture Star, or DCX, or Space Station Freedom, or Constellation, or Orion CEV. The list goes on and on. Or Centaur G upper stage for shuttle. Like, the list goes on and on and on, right? Most of the time when all those things got canceled, they got canceled for some bum freaking reason. Like, oh, your fuel tanks don't work, Lockheed, so, you know, these super prototype fuel tanks that are 20 years ahead of their time aren't working correctly, so we're going to cancel the whole project despite everything else being built. Sorry, right? I'm used to that kind of nonsense, right? So it's very easy to make the jump and think that this is more of that kind of nonsense, but it really isn't. It really isn't. This is ripping the Band-Aid off. And I hate admitting that. I really don't like it. I really still think NASA needs their own in-house stuff, but it very much seems like, guys, the only real way to do this would be to scrap the entire program and start over. At this point, that's what it seems like, and that might be what's going on. Just saying.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Hey, Oddjob, what's up? 7-month resub. But all those canceled programs at the time, there was nothing else, no commercial options. Now we're close. Yeah, exactly. This scenario is a little bit different. Exactly, Bob. If Starship and New Glenn didn't exist right now and Jared did what he did, I'd be pissed. Pissed. I would be like livid. But they do. They do. I honestly, like, if I'm going to think about this logically and weigh the facts, I probably would have done what Jared did. Actually, I probably wouldn't have had the stones to cancel the EUS. I'm not going to lie to you. Which, yeah, I don't know what that says about me. But, we've just made compromise after compromise after compromise after compromise. When Jared got in, he decided the buck was going to stop with him and he's not going to make a compromise. He's going to do what NASA needs. And that, I'll be honest, that's tough. That was tough to hear. It's tough to hear it, but truth hurts. Truth hurts, man. It can be argued that they don't exist yet. They could both still fail without giving us a final vehicle, which is why, Aqualex, I would still be working on building a lander and a co-manifested high-energy upper stage for SLS, but that's just... It's very clear that he doesn't want to do that, so... Reaver, this isn't even sunk cost fallacy, dude. This is just, like... Sunk cost fallacy means that the thing will eventually do what you want it to do. SLS is pretty much useless for trying to explore the surface of the moon. That would be something, Trey. Yeah, Trick, tell me about it. Anyway. All right, guys, how far are we into the space news? 2 hour 44. All right, we've made it almost 3 hours here, dude. If the SLS can't do the moon, it would never be able to explore Mars. Yes and no. The requirements for going to the moon, because it's so much closer, spoiled, it's so much of a shorter mission duration, do kind of change the architecture a little bit. Dama, after 9 tries, you got your SSDO to space. Now the hard part, re-entry. I would argue that the re-entry is the easy part, because no matter what you do, it's coming back down. A launch attempt isn't necessarily getting to your destination, but a re-entry is. It's just how you want to get down. Ship 40 scrubbed? Ah, oh well. Well, it might blow up. The last few times it popped. All right, dudes. That's going to do it for the Space and Rocket review. Hold on. Bonus bit. It makes me irrationally angry that the SRB nozzles aren't included in this stack. What was the reason for not including them? Why have a 99% complete shuttle stack? I know the answer to this question. The nozzles are ablators. The solid rocket booster nozzles are an ablative. They're basically made out of heat shield. That doesn't have a long shelf life sitting in a museum. Just unless the heat shield has been used. Tessa, it looks like Scotland likely are out, boss. Brazil put 3 past us. Ah. Sorry to hear that, man. That's just a shame. Tessa, did you see that when England came here, they closed all the bars in Boston? Just saying, bro. I'm just saying. They closed all the bars. They're like, yeah, we need a day off. Oh, yeah. We do, like, that's such a dick move. We love sticking it to those guys, dude. For 250 years, baby. Yeah, dude, Tessa, one of the commentators that was commentating on the England-Ghana game said, yeah, historically, England has not had a lot of success in Massachusetts. That was said on the live cast. I'm sorry. That's funny, man. Come on. It's funny because it's true. Oh, my goodness. Oh, boy. You're happy because you were cheering for Brazil. Look, man, if Scotland beat Brazil, that would have been a hell of an upset. I don't even know soccer that well. That would have been ridiculous. There's a clip of it somewhere. Yeah, I know. You linked it to me. USA versus England on July 4th. No. England, in order for us to play them in Philly on July 4th, England needed to match us in their group, and they went 0-0 against Ghana, which is funny as hell. Bro, what are you doing? How do you go 0-0 against Ghana? What are you? All right, and to be fair, they're pretty good, man, from what I understand. I mean, I don't know soccer that well, dudes. I know our football, but I do like sports, so. There's a sliver of a chance that Scotland can still get through as a third in the group, but only if our luck changes. 8 third-place teams get through. I'll put money on us of finishing 9th out of those. Tesla, I watched the Scotland match the other day, where they played against who the hell did they play the other day? Morocco. Morocco? Yeah, they played against Morocco. you played very passive. It reminded me of how the Toronto Maple Leafs used to play hockey. It was just very very passive play. You were waiting for Morocco to come to you. Like, my only amalgam here for understanding soccer is hockey, because soccer is basically hockey on grass and going a little bit slower. I'm sorry, it is. It's very similar. The offside rules in soccer are stupid, though, compared to hockey. Hockey has it right, but whatever. Morocco is a top team, though. They did good. No, I'm not disparaging Morocco, spoiled. They were just... I think Morocco was in their head, dude. They didn't play very well. Like, they were, you know, instead of passing the ball, or instead of kicking the ball at the net, right? Like, they would keep trying to pass it around. The Scotland strikers would try to pass it around instead of just putting the shot on net, right? Like, just kick it at the goalie. One of them will go in. It's just, like I said, it's similar to hockey, am I right? Like, I'm not a soccer player, right? But that's got to be applicable somehow. Nice, spoiled. Hey, Karmas, what's up, man? 8137. Yahoo! Got 80. Go! Unlike American football. Now, Stofar, I've been having this conversation here, being very, very nice about soccer, and somebody has to go and tell me that the football that I like is ridiculous. Why? Why do that? Why do you feel the need to do that? How about your game sucks and your players are a bunch of pussies because they flop everywhere? The other reason why Scotland lost is because they kept trying to draw penalties and the refs didn't call it. So they ended up looking like a bunch of pussies. How's that? Fix your damn sport. I was being nice, but somebody had to go knocking hand egg. I ain't gonna take that crap. What'd you do? Oh, man, I just went on this epic rant about how soccer sucks, and it got blanked. I don't want to do that all again. Damn. I think I pissed off too many people in England. Apparently Ship 40 is not a scrub. SpaceX always does an igniter test before static fire. Well, that's good. Sorry, I pushed the big red button. Damn. Oh, dude. That was such a good rant, too. It was so funny. I don't want to repeat it. It wouldn't be as funny. It's called football, by the way. No, it's not. The Australians call it soccer. Why don't you give them crap about that? Yeah. Did YouTube catch it? I actually think YouTube did catch it. I didn't see the YouTube. Did YouTube jump, guys? I just want to know what God Scotland pissed off to get Brazil in out of group 5 9 times. Well, Tessa, what I was saying in my rant, albeit in a much little more candid tone, you caught it. All right, cool, sweet. YouTube got the rant. Yes, awesome. Tessa, when you guys were playing Morocco, you guys were playing passive, and you were trying to draw yellow cards. You were trying to draw the foul by flopping everywhere and sitting there on the ground going, why didn't you call it? When Morocco was going down the field with the ball trying to score a goal. And that's how they scored a goal. Just saying. Scotland doesn't have a goal scoring tactic. They don't score goals. Even their win was just with one goal. That's the problem. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. They kind of sit back and kind of just wait for the people to come to them. Like, once again, my only amalgam here is because I know hockey, like ice hockey, right? If you do that in hockey, you're going to lose. That's basically all of men's football, soccer. It's theater. Ugh. No, but Deadbringer, the cool thing is that the referees in the Scotland-Morocco game weren't having any of that. They weren't calling nothing. Like, dude, people got like slide tackled and stuff, and people were getting banged up, and the Scottish guys were like, you know, like, dude, swallow the whistle. It's the World Cup. Should be a damn street fight. I want to see someone get punched in the face. I'm sorry. I just look at clips of soccer from like the 80s and people get like their legs broken and stuff. Like that. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Are you going to stream the Vandy launch later? I don't know. I legit don't know the origin of where the word soccer comes from. I have no idea. I know England invented that word, but I don't know. Someone from Canada got his leg broken. And it will die toward. That's what I'm saying. Yo, if the refs are going to swallow the whistles and have people get decked and stuff, that's soccer. Like, I want to see the goalie get doofed. Sorry, like, screw me, right? Like a Bruins-Toronto game. Yeah. Yeah, baby. Portugal for the win. Dude, Portugal thrashed on, who was it? Uzbekistan. It was bad. Any after hours plans? You want to see Milbury climb into the stands and beat the fans up with a shoe? It wasn't Milbury, that was Terry O'Reilly. Yes. I said we would bring after hours back one of these nights. So how about, I don't know, you guys want to see some Battlefield for a little bit? Play Battlefield. I feel like trying to flop in hockey is a good way to get... You'll actually get penalized if the refs think you flopped. They'll throw you in the penalty box. You will get penalized for trying to draw a penalty in hockey. That's why I like hockey. If they think you're flopping, they'll throw you out of the game. Get that OIG rage out? You know what, Fluffy? Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. Honestly, this OIG report would have pissed me off if Jared wasn't there. Like, if it was just another NASA administrator, just another random person, like, I'd be like, yeah, okay, they're not going to change it. But, you know, Jared will do something about it. Like I said, the decisions that he made aren't the most comprehensive decisions, but they'll work. Because the most comprehensive decisions clearly aren't going to work either. Like, you have to find a way to just go explore the moon, and, you know, you have to deal with politicians not giving you enough money to do it. You have to deal with contractors, subcontractors, all this stuff. This plan is at least a somewhat contiguous architecture. It's okay. It's not the best. It's not Apollo, but it's good enough. Like, what pissed me off the most about that is that people at NASA for the last 15 years seem to have been okay with this. The only time any of this stuff progress even remotely was made was when Jim Bridenstine was there. All those contracts got awarded in 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019. That is the only time we even saw remote forward progress of SLS, was when Jim was there. So what in the name of Jeb did NASA do from 2011 to freaking 2019, and then from 2025 till now? Like, what were you doing? Or no, it's basically 2011 to 2016, and then 2020 to 2025. What were you doing? You were doing nothing. Well, spoiled, I know. Canceling Constellation was an executive decision, and it was pretty much one of the worst decisions ever made in NASA's history. The only one it's bested by is canceling Apollo. Anyway. Also, just on a quick side note, I'll put this at the end of Space News. Pre-orders for GTA 6 are opening tomorrow. Now, I don't give a crap about the pre-order. Don't pre-order games. I will tell you that right now. I will say GTA 6 looks money though. But also, there's a press kit that Rockstar released with tons of screenshots and media and stuff. Holy crap, that looks great. Damn, dude. Those are pretty good graphics, dude. $100 for a single player game. Jeez, dude. We said that about the E3 Cyberpunk pictures too. You think GTA 6 is going to flop, Tessa? Interesting. Damn, dude. These aren't renders, guys. That's all in game. These are all in game pictures. Holy crap. $80 for normal, $100 for limited edition. Rockstar, no, you have no faith in the AAA industry anymore. That's fair. Fair criticism. I'm just looking at the nice screenshots, man. That guy has a mullet. Just saying. Jeez. They already locked some amount of single-player content behind the $100 edition, so they're already shortening regular buyers and jacking up the standard price on top of that. Ugh. Really? Why? Why does everything have to be like that? Why? Make a game and charge one price for it and complete it. Is this a difficult thing to do? I guess this is a difficult thing. Damn. Look at this. I mean, I'm sorry, man. This is just those graphics are great, man. That guy's been shot a couple of times. Oh, look. See that? You see that right there, guys? You know what those are? Those are Mentos. Yep, she's giving him some Mentos because his breath stinks. You're the fresh maker. Reused assets. Reused asset. Interesting. Woof. Altoids are much better. Look at that guy. He's getting his car washed. Hey, nice piece. Hey, oh, these guys get down. Hell yeah. Nice. Very nice. Florida men. Yep, that's right. Yeah, I don't have the console. Oh crap. I don't have a console that can play this. So what part of Florida is that? That oh, thank God there's going to be trains. That's good. Hey, Ren. All right, dudes. Let's end the Space and Rocket review. Let's play some Battlefield for a couple hours. Do we know if there's a space center? I don't know. I hope there's something. That would be pretty cool. Looks like we'll be getting upwards of 200 B-21s. Northrop Grumman B-21 production is officially shifting into high gear. Against the backdrop of a historic $1.5 trillion defense budget proposal for fiscal year 27, the United States Air Force is injecting $6 billion directly into the Raider program. The mission is single-minded and urgent. Accelerate production lines and get these next-generation bombers operational and into the skies. Okay. The original plan called for a fleet of 100 B-21s. Shifting geopolitical landscape has forced major strategic rethink. Momentum is building rapidly in Congress to upsize the fleet with high-level military backing from leaders like PACOM Commander Admiral Samuel Papero to push the numbers to 145 or even 200 aircraft. Good. The unit price will go down. Build more. I'd prefer if you just made more space shuttles, but hey, B-21s are good too. That's fine. All right. I'm going to jog the YouTube VOD, guys. I hope you enjoyed Space News. I'll be back in a moment. We'll play some After Hours Battlefield for a change. Thank you very much for watching the Space and Rocket Review.